We are live, yeah. So, good morning, wherever we are in the world. We're going to talk about the truth about memory improvement systems. The only truth that you need. And it is the only truth that you need because there really is truth in the world, especially when it comes to memory. Memory is one of the most amazing things you could ever get into, improving your memory, because it is totally truth-based. You either remember something or you don't. Isn't that great? It's like the most honest art you could ever practice, because you could do a painting, right? And the painting could be something that is loathed and hated and people just can't stand it now, but 100 years from now it could be the most revered and cherished painting in the world, and people are paying billions of dollars for it, right? So the truth about art is that there is no truth. It's got a lot of relative conditions, really, to the culture, to what people are valuing at any particular time. And there's some really great movies about, Pollock paintings being found or misidentified and so forth, and how garbage becomes totally valued over the top and so forth. But with memory, it is so pristine and precise and great. And I saw Jack was there saying hello. Hey Jack, I'm glad you like this topic. Everybody who's hopping on, let me know where in the world you are, what time it is, how you're feeling, what you're doing, what you're thinking. And we're going to talk about memory improvement systems, the truth about this memory improvement thing, because I get emails so often. Jack's in the UK. All right, whereabouts more specifically? I mean, if you're not embarrassed or shy or protecting your privacy, I know that things can be dangerous, but if you say more specific, that would be cool to know, to make a cognitive map and give something more to remember. North, near the lakes. Okay. My knowledge of the north of the UK is a little bit vague, but that's great. I will try to associate you with north, near lakes. Okay. So, Venugopalan from India. Whereabouts in India, Venugopalan? What an interesting name. Jack says, it's nice up north, you'll like it. All right, well, I hope to be there. Michael Swain's here. Hi, Michael, I've been hoping to hear back from you. 11:30 in the morning in Japan. All right, April keeps asking me to take her to Tokyo and Japan, and I would love to. We're still getting settled in from this huge move to Brisbane, but I want to go there for sure. I've never been to Japan. I've been just about everywhere under the sun except for Japan, and it is definitely the country of the sun. So Venugopalan says Kalapur. Wow. Harvinder, so great that you're here from Delhi in India. Harvinder, if you are the same Harvinder that we've had some emails going back and forth, thank you for those. I hope you got my response about your questions, because there is a new Harvinder in the Magnetic Memory Method Masterclass, and had some great questions, and that's been awesome. And Michael says Japan is amazing. Well, I imagine that it is. And I don't know if you guys watch PewDiePie channel, but he was saying some Japanese words in his latest video. Anyway, what's this truth about memory improvement systems? And I started to talk there about some emails I get. People often, and I'm not going to name competitors and stuff like that, or talk down to people, but or about other things out there, because the truth is that all memory training will help you. Memory training as such is so great. So just be a student of memory, and it'll always serve you well. But I really think that the use of the term memory improvement system or memory palace system or any kind of memory system. Harvinder says, yes, thank you for all the information provided. Oh, well, thank you. I mean, there's nothing like someone taking training and actually implementing it, and then getting good questions, because the quality of your questions is always relative to the work that one is putting in. So please keep your questions coming, and there's just a great process. Here's a system. It's the system where the best questions you can ask are the ones that have a report of what it is that you've done on your own, and then you go until that you hit a brick wall, and then you tell the person, here's what I've been doing. This is exactly what Harvinder did, and it's really great, and it enables your teacher to go, okay, so this is not just like a general barrier question. This is a question that is coming from experience, and then you can go from there and unlock so many more doors. So it's really, really great. Now, people ask me in email all the time, what do you think about this or that memory training system? And the reality is, Drunken Monkey Fist says, hello everyone. Oh, I just had to announce that name because that's a great one. Thank you for being here, Drunken Monkey Fist. That's a very, very powerful image. And of course, I imagine it relates to a martial arts kind of thing. Yeah, I'm curious how this sounds to you guys too. Like, what does the sound like? I was experimenting with better sound. Oh, it's from Kung Fu. Cool. Well, and you know, martial arts are interesting because there's a system kind of base to a lot of them as well. But people ask me, and you know, some people with those other memory systems out there, they get results, but they often complain that they have to spend hours and hours and hours putting things together. Jack says, I see Jackie Chan with his username. Yeah, Jackie Chan. Well, what a great master Jackie Chan is. And you know, Jackie Chan comes up a lot in my memory technique approach because he's such a visual guy and so memorable. And then you have so many Jackie Chans to use, right? Because he's in so many movies. So you can really use him in different ways based on the characters that he's played. So the Rush Hour Jackie Chan is very, very different than some of his sort of solo movies, which there's just so many of them, and it's just great. So when you're using actors in your memory palaces, you know, don't necessarily lock them down to their one person. Use them as their many characters. Drunken Monkey Fist says visualization is used a lot in Chinese martial arts. Vudisa is here from India. Hello, Vudisa. Thank you for being here. Anyway, people invest a lot into systems. They really try to take what other people have done and model them, thinking that that's the shortcut. And it's not a shortcut. It's the long way. And so what you're better off doing always is understanding that there is going to be systematicity involved in a lot of memory work, but you're not, or the memory arts, but you're not going to just download like Neo in the Matrix someone else's, you know, PAO or someone else's memory palaces. And people often ask me, I've had, oh, Vidissa says chess player, do you remember? Yeah, right. This is an interesting question when it comes to the whole system thing, because chess is kind of like a system, or the chessboard is like a system. And yeah, absolutely. The thing with the whole system issue is that you can't really ever do any memory technique without modifying for yourself. That's why magnetic memory method is a method. It's a method that's teaching you to create your own systems and to keep them vibrant, to keep them flexible, to keep them open to responding to information in the world and knowing what to do, when to do it, and how to do it, so that you're not stuck with going back to something inflexible. The systems are that are so rigid are from memory competitions, right? That's when it makes sense. That's when you know what kinds of information that you're going to be receiving. You know that you're going to be doing cards, right? You know that you're going to be doing vocabulary. You know you're going to be doing numbers. That's competition. There you can refine your systems down and tighten the gears and the bolts to the nth degree, and you can win prizes, you can win admiration, you can win all the kinds of stuff that you want to win. But what does that have to do with the real world outside of competition? Well, it has a lot in some senses. The skills are not totally alien to what you would want to do in the real world, but a lot of those people, they don't use those skills out in the real world. And They can't, because they're not designed for the real world. They're not methodological, they're system-based. And so they respond to information that is fed to you systematically. But a textbook doesn't really feed you information systematically. It may have chapters, it may have an index, it may have footnotes, it may have all kinds of features that are systematic in and of themselves relative to the book itself. But no book is following a system of information representation. A book is a memory device. A book is a information storage and retrieval device that you then read according to your reading preferences and your style, and you meet the book halfway depending on how that book has been designed. And so it is like its own self-contained and in many ways self-interfering system. And so if you have a system that you've created for reading books, then you can go and you can take that storage, information, and retrieval system and link it up with yours, but you're going to need to be flexible. You're going to need to modify. And that's why I teach things the way that I do, so that you don't go to a book and hoping to get the same result from this book as you got from the last book, but get even better than the same result, because it's really like in the dojo in a martial arts situation where you don't know exactly what's going to come up there, but you're prepared, you know something, you have some kata, so to speak, some forms, and when the information comes, you're able to respond to it in the best possible way in that situation, knowing what you know about your art of memory, the martial art of memory, the magnetic memory, right? And this is just an empowering way to think about systems, is to be free of systems, but know about them, have them in your mind, have them be what you created based on your experience. And so I just released a new podcast episode, which is called The Only 4 Memory Improvement Systems That You Need. And it's a bit tongue-in-cheek, this use of the word system, but it's really going to help you. So, go over to magneticmemorymethod.com now, and it's the most recent podcast episode. I'd really love if you would download it, listen to it, share it, comment on that page. Let people have the opportunity to also learn about these 4 memory improvement systems that you need, and just so that you, have a better understanding of what I'm talking about, this difference between system and method, and how really the only systems that matter are the ones that you create yourself. They matter more than anything in the world, because no one else can create them for you. You will always be the creator of the memory palace systems that you use, because the teacher can't be in your head. The teacher can't go, it's not renovation of a building. If I wanted to get this room renovated, the people would come and knock at the door, and then they would come in with their tools, and then they would start tearing things down, and then they would start rebuilding them up. That's in reality the changing of this building, right? And this room would actually be so much better renovated if I learned how to do all that stuff myself and could personalize it, and then tell the story of like how this oak table was, made by my hand and so forth. But most times it's going to get a guy to build the oak table, right? And then there'll be a story about that perhaps. But the thing with your memory palaces and all the memory systems that you create, if it's a PAO or whatever you want to do, you're going to need to do it yourself. No one else can go in there. You can't hire a guy to come through the door and do it. You've got to understand that you are the creator of the memory palace systems. Now you can be informed by other people's systems, but just buckle down and you're going to do it, right? Now, on this note, Nappy here is posting something. Let me see if I can get back to your post here. Nappy Alex says, I finally finished memorizing periodic tables with my 100 palaces, but don't know the symbols. I created a PAO for alphabets. I'm censoring your expletive there, but tell us more. Tell us more about that. That sounds very, very exciting. You've accomplished so much. That's amazing. Hats off to you. That's wonderful. And you did it yourself. That's a perfect example of who else is going to do it, right? Anybody else have some experience, getting in there and doing stuff on your own and understand that, it is exactly this. You're learning something in the world, but nobody else can actually do it for you. You have to show up. You create any system that you have. No one on the planet is going to give you a memory improvement system. It just doesn't work that way. You create it based on your understanding. So I'd really love for you to go to magneticmemorymethod.com. Make sure you get that episode, download it. Jack says, PAO for alphabets sounds interesting. What can it be used for? Oh, well, you know, there's all kinds of things. Maybe Alex there wants to chime in what his thing was. Yeah, I remembered that correct. Nappy Alex, good. Just checking back there. What he's using the alphabet PAO for. Look, there's lots of things you can use it for. One, Nappy says formulas and symbols, and he uses it for the periodic table. What are you memorizing the periodic table for? That's another question I would ask. What would you want or need the periodic table of elements in your mind for? Is it a memory exercise? And speaking of memory exercise, for AP chemistry, does AP mean advanced placement chemistry, like in high school or university? The one thing, Jack, is that, so yes, for advanced placement in high school, I guess. One thing, Jack, is that it's a great mental exercise to associate anything with the alphabet, because the alphabet is a pre-existing free mnemonic device. You have already memorized it. Anything that you've already remembered is a free mnemonic device, right? So it's a system. It's a system that we use to spell words, right? And we know it. But how well do you know the alphabet really, right? Like, can you say it backwards? Can you say it from A to Z to B to Y to C to X and so on, and actually skip the alphabet, right? Can you skip each letter? Great mental exercise. And there was someone named Harry Canet. I think that's how you pronounce it. I've never heard it pronounced, so I'm not sure, but he thought through the alphabet left, right, and center. Every possible thing that you could do with the alphabet, he did, right? And so if you have a number associated to every letter of the alphabet, well, that's kind of a system, right? You got to build it yourself, and what you do with it is up to you, but it is a way of actually, if you wanted, it's a way of just organizing memory palaces with an added level. So you could just use the alphabet, but also if you know the number of every alphabet, every letter of the alphabet, then you have another way of using that. Nappy says, I'm finally working on my disappeared so fast. I'm finally working on another system to memorize deck of cards using PASO, which is created by me, which don't go away. I think I am finally working on another system to memorize a deck of cards by using PASO, which is created by me, which you can memorize 52 cards by using 13 palaces instead of 2 images. Okay, now how do I make this go away here? Sorry guys, there's something that has taken over my screen. Oh, there, cancel button. I want to read this again. I'm finally working on another system to memorize deck of cards by using PASO, which is created by me. So you are the creator of something called PASO. Tell us more. Which you can memorize 52 cards by using 13 palaces instead of 2 images. Picture, sounds, objects, and action. So what's the difference between an object and a picture in your mind? That would be interesting to know. But I like the idea of having sounds in there. That's cool. Well, first of all, why would you need 13 memory palaces instead of just 1? Or, you know, when I started with cards, I created a system of 4 memory palaces for cards. But now I'm doing much different practice, and it's so much more streamlined just with 1 memory palace. And Nappy says location. Sorry, not memory palaces, but locations. Okay, so it sounds great though, and you know, sounds is something that I use often as well. A lot of people, they think that mnemonics are a visual, primarily a visual practice, but it's not. That's just touching the surface. We collectively have made the mistake of always talking about see it in your mind and think in pictures and just get an image in your head and all that sort of stuff. But because at the end of the day, it is an image, but it doesn't have to be a visual image. It can be a sound image. It can be a kinesthetic image. It can be a conceptual image. It can be an olfactory image. It can be a gustatory image. It can be combinations of these things. And the more that you combine these things, the richer and the stronger that it gets. So you want to be really aware of your sensory styles, which are the strongest for you, and that you enjoy the most and that you're most likely to remember. That's the path of success there, and really focus on that. So I'm glad that Nappy has talked about this sound part of a PAO. Keep working on your cards. Cards is a great mental exercise, and then cards have so many applications when you go out into the world, like when you have images for all your cards, images, there's that thing again, then you're going to have lots of very interesting experiences, because all kinds of innovations are going to come to mind, all kinds of ideas. Oh, someone put on a super chat here. Great. Thank you for that. Oh, I see. I did that. I don't. Okay, so now I want to see what these questions are. So Nappy says, how do you memorize words, which daunts my efforts? Highly recommend that you get one of my vocabulary books if you want to work on words. And Vidusa says, please explain the magnetic memory method. I don't understand what's the difference between the magnetic memory method and others. And Nappy says that magnetic memory method is more effective than others. Well, thank you for saying that, Nappy. It is, for many reasons, more effective, and it's one of the reasons we've been talking today about the difference between systems and methods, because so many people are trying to get you to think in terms of systems, and then you model what they did in their brain as opposed to understanding the principles and the guidelines and the way that your memory works. And so we get into that, and go to magneticmemorymethod.com, take the course. And the course doesn't bog you down in all the science that underlies it. It just goes straight to the techniques. But if you want to know what the science is, that can help open the floodgates as well. So a lot of the science is that your mind works really well with association. What you already know just needs to be connected to what you don't know. And so there are ways of doing this. Michael Swain says one of the main pieces is that the magnetic memory method utilizes memory palaces like no other method. Well, yeah, I mean, the core focus is that the memory palace is the ultimate association. So first rule of memory is that association works. You learn just about everything that you're going to learn through some form of association. Because even if it's not a literal association at the mnemonic level, you're encoding information in the chemistry of your brain, right? You're storing it. Your brain is an information storage and retrieval network. So everything is association down to the level of atomic chemicals. So you just need to understand that association is everything. Everything. The alphabet is so powerful because it is a system of association. It's an association that this is an A, this is a B, right? It's an association. But even better, when you put B and A together, it's an association that you might make the sound ba, right? And then if you put something like, BREAKING space BAD, then you have Breaking Bad, right? So you're getting multiple levels of association, association upon association upon association upon association. And so we need to really understand how to rig association in our favor. It's going to happen anyway. Look at this. There's like so many people on the call and only 4 likes. Come on, guys. You know I don't really care about the likes, but show me that you're alive and that you're here and you're engaged and you're enjoying this. So that the YouTube triggers go. I mean, apparently YouTube says there's no. Oh, Dango says I'm alive. Have you hit that click like? the like button yet? Have you gone to magneticmemorymethod.com and supported with downloading that new episode? And oh, there comes the likes. Thanks, guys. Maybe it does stroke my ego a little bit. Praveen's here. Hey, he says, hi, Dr. Anthony. Yeah, well, hi, Praveen. Association is everything. So that's one of the things that I want you to rig in your favor. And there are Vidisa says, explain your memory palace, which is more complex. It's not complex. It's actually simpler than any other. Jack says, I already liked as soon as I joined, as I always do. Thanks, Jack. I really appreciate the support. I'm really curious, just about the whole YouTube connection here, which I'm not going to get into because we don't need to talk about the technology. But just so that you know, when you support people with your stuff that you like, really as mundane as it seems, it really does help, and it helps spread this message, but it also helps that person continue to do the work that you're enjoying. So your participation is so needed, especially if you care about this kind of education, this kind of discussion, and you really want to see more of it for more people. And I know that magnetic memory method is a little bit more intense. It's not necessarily beginner level for memory techniques, but I really appreciate all the support so I can continue to do this work to help people who are ready to play with the big boys, right? And get into the mechanics and the nitty-gritty of all this and simplify it while we're at it, because it actually is really, really simple. But that simplicity comes from putting on our adult pants and understanding that this is an art, it's a practice, it's a way of life, it's already happening in your brain anyway, you can optimize it, and you can't think in terms of adopting other people's systems. You've got to. Tinku says, hi, hello Tinku, where in the world are you from? Let us know. You've got to really, really, really understand these differences. So association, it's chemical. It's already happening chemically, whether you like it or not, which disassociation is also happening. Think of your brain as a neighborhood, okay? And or actually a series of neighborhoods. It's like a series of cities, a series of neighborhoods in those cities, and it's not like a computer at all. It's chemical. It's chemical. And when information comes into your brain through your eyes or your ears or your sense of touch or your sense of taste or your sense of smell or even your sense of cognition, because cognition, I believe, is a sense. Tinku says, I am from India. Wow, India. This is like a great time for reaching India. If you're in India and you can go to magneticmemorymethod.com, please go there. There's a course there for you, and there's a new episode of the podcast called The Only 4 Memory Improvement Systems That You Need. I'm going to tweet it right now. Why not? Let's give that sucker a tweet. Bang! Off into the ether of the internet. Anyway, so we've got this, Jack. It's 3:51 a.m. in the UK. Okay, this is definitely not the greatest time to be on YouTube Live for the UK people. I mean, we need to have some memory-friendly sleep going on, don't we? I hope. But I'm glad you're here anyway, and a big smile. The neighborhoods in your brain, information is dispersed while it's going into your brain, and it's not stored in the same location. It's not like you see a name like Jack or Nappy, and then it just like goes into one part of your brain. It may be distributed, split up into different cities. Or even in a neighborhood, it may be split up into different houses into the neighborhoods. So that's one of the reasons why it can be so hard to remember information that you just encountered 2 seconds ago, is because it's dispersed. It's just a splatter gun. Information hits you like that, stimulation. And it's getting just shot all over the place. But we can rig the game in our favor by just taking a pause, recognizing that some information has come, paying attention to it, saying, information, and then encoding it. And we encode it by creating images. And then we take those images that we created and we put them in a memory palace. Andy says, yo, what's up? I started your kit a few days ago. Oh, Andy, great that you're here. Yo, I like that. Yo, yo, yo. Goes with YOLO, you only live once. Nappy says, the funniest thing about storing in palaces is that sometimes I don't believe I just memorize something in a second, so I try to cram my image. Well, look, you're going to get a feel for it as you go along. And different situations are different. That's why systems are something to be very cautious about. You need to have the methods. You need to really be able to receive the energy of information, be aware that the energy of information is there, know that it's going to disperse real quick, grab onto it, encode it, and not cram. You want this to be a very, very soft and ego-free process. And you want it to really, and that's one of the issues, right? Is I say ego-free, but you're using what you already know, which involves your ego, to encode. But that's the point, is you associate, and you associate at multiple levels. And this is what makes the magnetic memory method different, is the training of just how many levels you have out there. And I apologize again on behalf of everyone who keeps pushing the visual thing, but you could have aphantasia, which is the lack of a mind's eye, and still be very good with your memory. Jack says, what's the difference between a system and a method in memory techniques? Well, the method is what you use to create your own system, and you are methodological relative to your ability to bend the system to your will in real time when you need it. So think of the Matrix. There is no spoon, right? So there is no system, right? There's just your use of a system that you've created yourself based on principles and methods in the moment that you need it. And your ability to use that in the moment that you need it is relative to your constant, ongoing practice of the art of memory and your actual use of the art of memory. So if you go out in the street and you meet a new person, you could be the best memory expert in the world who has the best techniques, and it's happened. I won't get into the whole story, but you know, it's just there have been people who have won memory competitions, been the top person in the world of memory competitions. They go and they get interviewed on a TV show, and they are asked by the host, "So what's my name?" And they have forgotten it. Now, the question is, did they forget it, or did they just not encode it in the first place, right? Did they not pay attention to it in the first place? So your ability is always indexed against your actual practice and use of it at all times. And then what happens is when you make mistakes, mistakes will happen. The test is, what do you do about the mistake? What do you do about the mistake to improve? What do you do to understand what happened in that moment? Vudisa asks how to create a memory palace. Please go to magneticmemorymethod.com. Make sure that you get the free course, and that will take you through creating a memory palace. And it's a great opportunity for you to learn, and you'll enjoy it. And please follow the instructions, because there's an exercise there that if you actually do it, you will be able to create a memory palace, and a much better one, because you'll understand this difference between method and system, and you'll realize that you are creating a system as you do it. Forgive my drinking, but the mouth gets dry, talking and talking and talking. But I really appreciate these questions, because it's really important, and you know, it applies to things in life that are also outside of memory, or well, everything's inside of memory. What else is there except for memory in the present moment, right? Except for something called persistent, non-symbolic experience, which is something I've been messing around with lately, and it's a lot of fun, and I highly recommend that you get into this. That's on my other website, by the way. If you don't know selfimprovementsupercharger.com, you might want to go over there, because I recently posted about a book called Happiness Beyond Thought, and the book is basically a training in how to create and experience persistent, non-symbolic experience. Wow. That's fun. Nappy says, can you alter brain structure by using palaces like bad traumas? Well, yeah, I'm not a doctor of any sort of medical kind. I got the PhD doctor, but not a medical doctor. So check that with your medical doctor if you have emotional problems or anything. Well, you know, there's no such thing as emotional problems as such. There's biology involved in all emotions. There's also logic involved in a lot of emotions. People don't realize that, but the emotions are well, they're connected to logic. There's not an illogical or logical emotion, but there's a logic of emotions. Very powerful to realize that and understand that any emotions that you have are a kind of processing of the external environment, and there's a logic to it. And there are patterns, and you can really understand yourself better and make a lot of progress there. And that all relates to memory, because if you know what you're associating with, and you know how you feel emotionally about the associations that you bring to the information that you're receiving from the outside world, then you're much more capable of stopping that splatter spray of information and directing it not into this or that city split up into different pieces, but into one city, and a city of your choice. But even better than a city of your choice, into a memory palace of your choice in a specific neighborhood. Michael says, I'm no doctor either, but I have had a relatively successful experience with using memory techniques to downplay or even simply rewrite unpleasant images, feelings from memories with little resistance. Thank you for sharing that. It's true. You know, I have done work with this, and it's true. Look, imagine you had a really bad experience, Michael continues, which implies you can make serious changes within your own brain. Yeah, I don't want to make scientific claims that I couldn't back up, but we know about neuroplasticity. We know that the brain can be shaped chemically. Look, I just drink some water here, brain-friendly, memory-friendly water, and I am causing chemical reactions to cause change in the brain. So if we step away from the emotion discussion for a second and we just talk about the brain state as such, if you are frustrated, if you are having a hard time, just go and drink some water and you'll feel better. You'll almost always feel better. Like, feels so much better. Like I'm causing a brain thing, a brain change. Nappy, I'll get to your thing in a second here. The brain is so reliant upon material reality, and so many times when I have felt frustrated or upset, I just went and drank some water. Like it just does so much to center you in the world. And a lot of people don't realize this. They don't realize that they're suffering physically, and that's what's causing their mental problems. Jack says, Michael is right, I can do it too and fool my brain into believing whatever I program to it. Our brain is amazing. It is amazing. You know, I don't know if you guys know neuro-linguistic programming and all that stuff, but if you get into that, you know, you'll read about all this. And so if you take a bad thought and you put it in a memory palace and you just changed its color to black and white, then that can change how you feel about it. If you speed it up like a Mickey Mouse cartoon, like you had a fight with your girlfriend and you keep running the fight through your mind, blah, 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 blah. You take that fight and you put it in a memory palace and you speed it up, and now you're hearing the fight that you had with Mickey Mouse words. Blah, 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 blah. You see how silly it is and how stupid it was, and you just like have a different emotional reaction to it. And then you take all the color out of it, and it's black and white, and then you shrink it down real small, and maybe you make it so small that you come along in your memory palace and you just sweep it away, put it in the dustpan and throw it in the garbage, right? That can provide some temporary relief. Do it enough times, it could provide permanent relief. You got to experiment with it, right? But you don't have to accept anything. And yeah, go and check out my other website, Self-Improvement Supercharger, if you're having problems with that, because it's not just about using a memory palace and so forth. It's about taking care of your body and your soul. And so talk about cold showers over there, which can stimulate the vagus nerve in the brain. Talk about happiness beyond thought, and I'm going to be writing more about this persistent non-symbolic experience. Really great stuff. But yes, the answer is you can use a memory palace in that way. I think I saw something here from Nappy that he says, I'm trying to rewrite words I stutter by storing. I tried my first experiment talking by thinking about the palace. Wow, that's great. I mean, use is so powerful. Using memory palace is so powerful. So the new podcast is called The Only 4 Memory Improvement Systems You Need. It's at magneticmemorymethod.com right now. And really appreciate everybody going over there, tweeting it, sharing it on Facebook, sharing it on your Google Plus, sharing it on LinkedIn if you're on LinkedIn, and wherever else you might like to share. And really appreciate all the engagement here. Look, does anybody have any questions about anything before that it starts to get time to close down another episode of the Magnetic Memory Method live on YouTube? Or anybody want to share anything that's going on? Michael, I responded to you recently, and I don't know any emails that I may have missed, but I'm gonna search as soon as I get off the call. I'm gonna put it in right now. Search your name, and thank you again for being a owner of the Magnetic Memory Method Masterclass. And oh yes, yeah. Okay, so I'm going to look at those again right now, and there is some that I haven't responded to. Oh, that's crazy. Sorry about that. But I did email you the other day to follow up on that book, The Memory Code. And wow, you know, speaking of systems and so forth, let's close this up with one point about the memory code, and I'll be in touch with you, Michael. Michael says no problem. Thank you, Michael. I really appreciate it. You know, I've got big things going on right now, and I don't mean to make excuses or anything, but there is a big announcement coming out, like the biggest announcement in the world, and I can't wait to share it. But you know, sometimes you just got to hold on to things until they're ready. But yeah, there's some crazy cool thing coming real soon. But it's very complex. So, and it's not the app that we were talking about last week. By the way, you know, a lot of people filled out the survey about the apps. Thank you for that. If you haven't filled out that app survey, go to magneticmerrymethod.com. It's not this week's podcast, but last week's podcast. Love to hear from you. So far, I'm not convinced so much by the feedback that it warrants making the kinds of apps that have been requested, although very interesting ideas. Thank you so much for them. But the more feedback, the better. And the survey is very simple. It's I originally had this monster survey on there, which I would like, but people weren't answering it, so I simplified it. Nico asks, have you ever used something different than images in memory palaces, like maybe sounds and smells and feelings? Well, Nico, that's been covered on this call already. So if you go back to the YouTube replay, you can check that out later. But yeah, absolutely, of course. There's many sensory styles, and you can use them all. And I'll apologize again to all the people that use visual only in their training. Nico says, I will. Thanks. Well, thank you for checking it out, and really appreciate if you give it a share and leave a comment. Let me know what you thought underneath the video. Pablo says, greetings from Mexico. Pablo, ¿cómo estás? Good to see you here. Yeah, what were we talking about? Oh yeah, so systems and this memory code thing. So the one thing that I wanted to cover here is that there's a question about the memory code and how to build what was called a Lucasa, and someone was really saying that they liked the book but felt that it never explained how to make a Lucasa, and I was kind of curious about that, because it is so clear how to make it, but it is again that sort of thing that people tend to want like a system handed to them. But really, what one needs, if you want a Lucasa, you need to go and make one, and then use it, and have a reason why that you're going to use it, and not expect it to be handed to you how to do it, because how you do it is you make one and you use it. There's no escaping that. There's no escaping it. It's the most powerful and profound truth in the world. If you want a memory palace, you go out and make one. If you want your memory palace to be a Lucasa, then you go out and you make one. And Vec says, about how many memory palaces have you made? I have made over 200 memory palaces now. And it's gotten to be so many that I don't keep track of them, but I know it to be over 200. Look, I've got memory palace journals like crazy. I go into places, I draw them. I was just invited. Oh, it was so cool. There's a magnetic memory method student, customer, person who owns the masterclass, member of the family. And she invited me. She works in the government office at 1 William Street. And she invited me to the building. And she gave me, April and I, a tour of the building. And now this is going to look totally stupid because I'm like, can't find my memory journal. I can't remember where my memory journal is. No, I can. I temporarily can't. That's because it's in my backpack, probably. Ah, there it is. So my memory journal that I used on this particular occasion, I just made a new memory palace. I do this all the time. Vex says, dang. Yeah, okay, so there's one of those crazy moments. But you know what? This is the truth. You're thinking about 5 things at once, and memory, if you didn't memorize it, then how can you remember? But so I was, and I'll just protect the innocent. But I was taken by April and I were given a tour of 1 William Street by a great magnetic memory method family member, a supporter. And we got the whole tour of 1 William Street here in Brisbane, which is a government building, and it was so amazing. And the first thing that I do, and this is where I just stopped counting, because I have a memory palace journal. I have multiple memory palace journals. I just drew it right like that, boom. And this is just one part of that building, and it's just, you just get into the habit of it. You're imprinting locations at a much deeper level in your mind by doing this. And memory palace journals are really important. They're so important. They're going to make a huge difference to your life. And you can break the rules in your memory palace journals and sometimes make mind maps if you want. Mind maps and memory palaces. If you haven't heard my interview with Phil Chambers about memory palaces and mind maps, we have a good one. But get a nice dedicated memory palace journal. This has to be my 50th memory palace journal. I got a box in there full of them. I got rid of a lot of stuff when we moved to Brisbane, but I kept all my journals and sent them to myself. And you get things like this to draw in. Just make memory palaces. You're going to love them. Get as many of them as you can because it's a great skill to have, memory palace creation. So this is the most recent one that I actually made. And you're seeing something top secret there. Oops. Go back and watch the replay to get a glimpse of what was shown there. Anyway, I hope that doesn't jinx the whole project. But I don't draw every single one, but every one that I do draw is way better. It's way better. So there, that's what they look like. And all you need to do is carry around. Oh, I don't want to have that shown again. Ooh, sneak preview. Just get an unlined is better, but this time I'm using a lined one because I was given this journal here, and so I'm using it because it's a gift. But really beautiful, simple like that. And I have so many great memories of 1 William Street, and there's actually probably about 6 more memory palaces that I could draw from the visit there. And go back and mine that sucker for more. And one of the things that I made sure to do while I was there was to touch the walls and stuff. And there was some really nice wood in different parts of it, and really great. So Drunken Monkey Fist says, understandable. I missed some of your posts here. Oh, we're having a long session today. Some people, they said, couldn't you have these lives shorter? And I said, no, they go as long as they go. Okay, so Michael says, I've made about 160 over the last 6 months, but some of these are tied to my language learning systems. top notch. That's great. Jack says, am I right to assume that the magnetic memory method is a method that teaches you to create your own method? No, I wouldn't say it teaches you to create your own method, although you might come up with your own methods. It's teaching you to use memory techniques at a level that is 100% perfect for you, and it's the honest way to do it. It is the most precise and pristine way to do it, and it's very, very focused on the ultimate memory association tool, which is the Memory Palace. And getting that Memory Palace right is what it's all about. So Michael chimes in that it teaches you to create your own systems that are flexible like methods using the principles that make it all effective. So it's about flexibility for sure. And it's about understanding this at the deepest possible level and giving you the training from someone who does this day in and day out as a practice, not as a competition. There's nothing wrong with the competitions, but those people who are teaching you, they're teaching you slanted from a competition angle, and I find that tremendously frustrating because those techniques are so useful for competition, but not necessarily for the real world. And so a lot of people, they struggle, and that struggle doesn't need to be there. So Drunken Monkey Fist asks, would it be good for programming languages like JavaScript, Python, things like machine learning, neural networks? For sure. Michael says, it's no mystery that everyone is different, so depending on the person, memory techniques can have different appeals for memory encoding. However, there are principles that need to be followed to get the best results. So to answer your question from my perspective about programming languages like JavaScript, Python, machine learning, neural networks, Drunken Monkey Fist, here's the reality of it all. People tend to think that this and that kind of information are different. And yes, at some level, some kinds of information are different than other kinds of information. But at the base level, all information is the same. It's information. It's out in the world. It's going to hit your brain. And it's going to hit your brain in time. There's going to be a beginning of the exposure, there's going to be a middle point of the exposure, and there's going to be an end point of the exposure. And you can be in control of all those points of exposure. And while you're in control of all those points of exposure, you can be encoding the information into your memory at a much higher level that doesn't let chance take over, doesn't let accidents happen, that lets you use your imagination, that makes it much more interesting and fun, that gives you the ability to create your own systems that you want to keep flexible, and you will keep flexible because you understand the methodology, and you're going to have an amazing, amazing experience in terms of recall, in terms of your ability to remember what it was that you remembered. And what is going to be so much more important on top of all this is that you're going to get a huge, huge blast of creativity increase. You're going to get focus and concentration increase. You're going to get your confidence increased. You're going to have so much more fun with learning. You're going to have a much more positive attitude about the information that you encounter out in the world. You're going to just have an amazing time with your memory. Pablo says, is there an optimal way to classify memory palaces to store different kinds of information? Pablo, this is all taught in the magnetic memory method at the, you're introduced to it in the free course. And yes, classifying memory palaces is super simple, and you can create them for different learning projects so that they work at an optimal level relative to what that project is. You've just got to get in and learn how to do it. Tinku says, your website is nice. I just checked it, and I just checked and subscribed for it. Thank you, Tinku. I really, really appreciate that, and I hope that you will become a lifelong fan and listen to all the podcast episodes. You know, I often don't really think about this, but I realized today I released episode 180, and I linked back to episode 9. So that's thanks to your support. I was able to link back to episode 9 on the 180th episode of the Magnetic Memory Method podcast. This is just a veritable university of every topic related to memory and memory improvement, specifically memory improvement, how to do it. It's all science-based. I don't always talk about the science as such because, people are busy. They don't necessarily want to get into the science, although I do want you to become a fan of the science because it can help guide your practice relative to your interest in it. Andy asked, when do you typically have these live streams? I joined late. I don't typically have them. These are fun times to hang out with you guys, and I really don't want to do them on a schedule yet, although there's a big announcement coming that might have something to do with the regular schedule. But for now, really just seeing what's interesting out there to do with YouTube Live, because it's cool technology that we can get together, and I appreciate you all being there. I appreciate all the engagements when people put their thumbs up. I don't know what I keep hitting here. I'm trying to see your comments. Oh yeah, there we go. Drunken Monkey Fist says, great explanation, thank you. Pablo says, awesome, thanks Anthony. Well, thank you all for being here. And I appreciate everybody who has gone over to magneticmemorymethod.com and got the latest episode of the podcast. Pablo says, I'm curious, I've heard about methods of how to remember your past. Is there really some kind of method or system to do that? There is a method and a system for how to recall more of your past. And I am going to be making an announcement about that in the near future, because it's a skill, and it's a skill that once you start doing it, you will be amazed by how much you remember of your past that you didn't even know you could remember, and that has lain dormant. And the best part about it all is that the more that you excavate from your past all these details, the more material you have for making super powerful associations. So stay tuned for an announcement about that. And the best way to get announcements is to go to magneticmemorymethod.com. Make sure you're on my email list. I know that getting emails is not for everybody, and I know that the world is changing and people prefer Facebook or whatever, but the best way in my little universe to be notified of anything is to be on email, and you will get some notifications that way, and open those emails, engage, and press reply. I sometimes take a while to answer, but I do answer people. I'm getting better at answering people. I need another assistant. I know that some of you are aware of the tragedy in which I lost my assistant and how picky I am about not getting another one just out of nowhere. So it might be a while before I find the perfect magnetic memory method angel, but she'll come, or he'll come, and we'll solve that when we solve it, but working towards it. Andy asked, do you recommend reading a book first from start to finish and going back to memorize key points, or reading and memorizing at the same time? Andy, that's covered in the Magnetic Memory Method Masterclass in detail. There's a whole part on exactly how I recommend reading. Sometimes call it Magnetic Memory Method Bibliomancy, and it relates to speed reading, but I actually think of it as slow reading, because ultimately it takes as long as it will take you after you've learned the methods behind what I'm talking about, what bibliomancy is, and then you understand it, you understand how I do it, and you understand what you can do with what I do, and then you create your own process around it, and you go out and you just race through books at whatever speed that you choose, which may sometimes be fast, may sometimes be slow. It really depends on what you're doing and the calculations that you make based on bibliomancy as you adopt for yourself. Sounds all very mysterious, I'm sure, but it's in the Magnetic Memory Method Masterclass, the master plan part of the masterclass, and I hope you check it out. So, guys, I'm so glad that we had this time together today. I think it was amazing for me. Well, I don't think it was amazing for me. It was amazing for me, and Pablo says, great, I'll keep reading your emails and new content. Awesome. I really appreciate that. And I appreciate all your support. It is only happening because of you. Jack says, thank you. Michael says, yeah, thank you so much. Thank you all for being here. Michael, your emails are top priority here. I'm going to answer as soon as I get off this call, which is going to be in the next 10 to 20 seconds. Venugo Palan says, thank you. Thank you, Venugo Palan. Really great having you here. Thanks to everybody who was here on the call today. I really appreciate it. And, I was teaching April this song the other day. If you haven't heard it, you got to check it out. It goes, skinnamarink dinky dink, skinnamarink doo. I love you. Skinnamarink dinky dink, skinnamarink doo. I love you. I love you in the morning and in the afternoon. I love you in the evening and underneath the moon. Skinnamarink dinky dink, skinnamarink doo. I love you. So, love you all, and thank you for being here. Michael says, by the way, I have had progress on the material from the email, but will still love your feedback. Michael, thank you for that, and thank you for your support as a member of the Magnetic Memory Method family. Much love. I'm going to get to your email right now, and thank you all for being here. Thank you, Andy, for being here, and thank you everyone who is being on the call and all the future calls. Michael says it's a privilege. Well, it's an honor and a privilege, and I'll see you guys real soon. And until we speak again, keep yourself magnetic.